Last summer, I went down to the Dairy Queen in Murraysville to get a banana split. I love summertime banana splits. I can't wait for summer to get here to get my banana splits. So I'm sitting there at the Dairy Queen enjoying my banana split when his husband and wife walk into the Dairy Queen. They sit 2 tables behind me. The husband said to the wife, "What would you like?" And she said to him, "Anything, whatever you get." Well, I'm just sitting there enjoying my banana split, and he went up to the counter. About 2 minutes later, he returns with 2 chocolate ice cream cones. And she grabs one, and she starts yelling at him, and she said to him, "You know I like vanilla sundaes with a lot of fudge. Why did you get me this?" And she is yelling at this guy at the top of her voice. I'm embarrassed for her. So then I thought to myself, I think it's about time men stick together. And I'm going to go back there and straighten this whole mess out. I'm going to tell her what she did wrong. So I got up, I walked over to their table. She looked at me when I looked at her, and she kept yelling at her husband. I got scared, grabbed my banana split, and ran away. And then I remember I got in my car and I drove out of that place, and I thought to myself, maybe an unmarried priesthood isn't such a bad idea after all. You know, what happens is when there's a lack of clarity, then that leads to confusion, and that leads to confrontation. Now, John in today's gospel reading offers one very simple little message. Make sure you make yourself clear when you're having a conversation with someone else. You see, John wrote his gospel in 110 AD. He wrote his gospel for Greek-speaking Gentiles and Greek-reading Gentiles. Now, whenever John in his gospel, whenever he would use a Hebrew word, which he knew automatically, there's a real good chance a lot of the Greeks who are going to read this, these Gentiles, they'll have no idea what the Hebrew word means. He then would put down the meaning of the Hebrew word. Now, John believed this. If you understand what you read, you're bound to read more. If you don't understand what you're reading, you're probably going to read a lot less. And he wanted to make sure that the people would read his gospel so they would learn about Jesus Christ. So he wanted to make sure they understood everything that he wrote. And 3 times in this gospel reading, first chapter John, verse 35 to 42, 3 times he uses the Hebrew word, and 3 times he explains it. Now, today's gospel reading obviously is translated English. But the Hebrew words remain Hebrew words. They too are translated in English. But let's take a look at what John does here. Now, there's John, the first chapter, John, verses 38. What are you looking for, Jesus said. They said to him, "Rabbi," that's a Hebrew word, which is translated, "Teacher, where are you staying?" John realized, look, the gospel's in Greek. I'm using this Hebrew word. Some of you might know what it means. Some might not know what it means. So I'm going to put down as translation, it means teacher. Now, John really believed you can never explain yourself enough. So he does this another time. Let's take a look. This is the first chapter, John, verse 41 this time. He, Andrew, first person singular, first found his own brother and Simon and told him, "We have found the Messiah." The word Messiah, another Hebrew word, which is translated Christ. He's trying to make sure, okay, I'm using a word you're not familiar with. It means Christ. And the readers are saying, that's great. Now I understand exactly what it is that you're talking about. And in this short gospel, John does it one more time. Let's take a look. Again, verse 42 out of the first chapter. Jesus looked at Simon and said to him, "You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas," which is translated Peter. Again, he's using that Hebrew word Cephas, and it means Peter. You see, whenever you explain yourself, then you get rid of confusion and you get rid of confrontation. Even General Douglas MacArthur, he was a commander in the First World War, commander of Second World War, and for about the first 9 months of the Korean conflict, he always believed that the root cause of many wars, if not all wars, between nations, between people, is based upon a lack of clarity. You haven't explained yourself enough. He believed it was always important to have communication before confrontation and clarity before calamity, just to make sure I explain myself well and I hear what someone else wants from me. Whenever families have arguments, and the argument subsides and everyone goes off to their own corner and they kind of recollect as to what went wrong, there's always a good chance one family member is going to say, look, I am sorry. That fight was my fault. Why was it my fault? Because I didn't make myself clear. I asked you to do something, but I wasn't clear in my instruction. You tried to do what you thought I wanted. You turned out to be wrong, and I yelled at you. Something tells me, and I'm not sure for a fact, but the next time, if there was a next time, the next time that man took his wife to Dairy Queen, and she sat down, and he looked at her, and he said, what do you want? And I'm positive if she said anything, he said, no, no, no way, no way. I'm going to go up there, I'm going to get the menu, you're going to write it down, item for item for item. I am not taking a chance. I will return with what you want, not with what I think you want. It's a nice little message, but our prayer should always be, Heavenly Father, give me the gift of clarity. Allow me to explain myself well to those people around me so they can always respond accordingly. And help me, Heavenly Father, to understand what those around me want from me so that I can respond accordingly. The gift of clarity, explaining yourself well. Because lack of clarity leads to confusion, which leads to confrontation.